I will call to order the regular board meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez. I'm the chair, and with me today is Commissioner June Brown.
Present.
And Commissioner Laura Kotelman.
Present.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes? If not, we will proceed with, we don't have any meeting minutes. We will proceed with the Executive Director's report. Mrs. Spera.
Good morning, Madam Chair Brown and Commissioner Kotelman.
Good morning.
I would like to begin by thanking staff and their outstanding job performance for putting in long hours to ensure the election process ran as smoothly as possible. I want to inform everyone that we are now preparing for the next petition filing period, which will take place from Monday, May 18th through Tuesday, May 26th. This filing period will include independent and nonpartisan candidates, as well as candidate for president and members of the Chicago Board of Education. I would also like to note that we have begun receiving visitors on the 6th floor for purposes of signature verification. Last week, I attended the Zone 4 Illinois Association of County Clerks and Election Commissions March regional meeting. While we are not yet official members, I am pleased to share that we are on track to receive approval for membership and formally join the commission later this year. Next week, on April 15th, from 1 to 3 p.m., we'll be hosting a visit from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. They will be touring our office, and this will be a valuable opportunity to showcase our operations and highlight our work our team is doing. And finally, Maribeth and I will be conducting post-election meetings with the staff from all departments. The information gathered will be used to identify opportunities for improvement and strengthening our operations moving forward. We anticipate to complete these meetings by the end of April. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Spera. And now we'll hear from our Assistant Executive Director, Mary Beth Caruso.
Thank you. I want to echo what Sandra said in terms of thanking the staff. First time, and just truly amazing how everything comes together and how smoothly it went, in large part due to Mrs. Sparrow. So thank you. Echoing what she said about the meetings that we're going to be having, going over what we did well and what needs to be improved upon as far as operations go, is going to take up a lot of time this month. But the other thing that I am working on along with HR is we're going to be advertising our positions, our 19+ positions. I say plus because there are some retirements, so we want to make sure that we're on track to fill those positions, hopefully by August 1st. Anybody that's retired thus far. So
Great.
that's what we're working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll hear from our Public Information Director, Max Bever. Good morning, Max.
Good morning, Commissioners. So I will also echo and thank everyone involved, from poll workers to all of the Chicago Board team. Election day, I'm pretty glad that the media agreed with our own assessment, that it was safe, it was smooth, better than average turnout. Also races that the AP was comfortable to call night of. Maybe a little quiet on election day, but overall, very successful election that was echoed by our friends in the media. I have some stats to share based off of our turnout. So based off of the proclamation that was just signed, we saw 424,564 ballots cast for a 27.30% citywide turnout. That puts us in between the 2018 and the 2022 turnouts, just like we had predicted, almost exactly in the middle between those two turnouts. We had another election day where we saw under a half of voters show up to cast their ballots on election day. We saw 210,312 ballots cast on election day for a 49.54% turnout for election day voters. And we saw 21,321 ballots cast at vote centers, so that was over 10% of our Election Day voters voting at our early voting sites that were open on Election Day. We had 102,641 early voting ballots cast, so that was just over 24% of our voters choosing to early vote. And for voting by mail, we had 111,611 vote-by-mail ballots cast for just over 26%. So this is similar to the elections that we have been seeing, where about half people vote on Election Day and about a quarter either choose to vote by early voting or voting by mail. But we're happy to say, voting by mail, we saw 55,334 vote-by-mail ballots received via secure Dropbox. That was 49.58% of our vote-by-mail ballots, so almost exactly half, which is a new record. So we're happy to say Chicago voters are aware of our drop boxes. They feel very comfortable using them, and they're increasingly using them all the way up to Election Day. And for the attention that was paid, especially on the postmark issue, we are happy to say that 1,046 ballots were ultimately rejected, and that includes late or insufficient postmark, and that is under 1% of total vote-by-mail ballots that were cast. So thankfully, I think the amount of attention, the amount of emails, social media, messages, press conferences, messages from you, Chairwoman, the many candidates, the campaigns, the elected officials out there, getting that message out seemed to be quite successful, and we had just a very minimal amount. And it also seemed to be people heeding our advice and using those secure drop boxes heading into Election Day.
I wonder how many, how does the 1,046 compare to the last primary? I don't know.
A bit similar. So we did not
Bit-
see,
okay.
you know, a huge spike. We didn't see a drop. Those are the numbers that we like to see, if we get that under the 1% of the total vote-by-mail ballots cast. But that's a big thank you to Clint Hurd and the rest of the People team and vote-by-mail team. They're very busy during that 2-week counting
Sure.
period. Ultimately, we did see, you know, out of the 172,000 vote-by-mail applications that were processed, we saw nearly a 65% successful return rate. Usually for general elections, we like to see that be 85. A lot of that, I think, is related to the permanent roster. People are on the primary, they might change their mind, they might vote in person instead. But ultimately, that was a better return rate than we saw for the 2024 presidential primary. So overall, I think this is extraordinarily impressive for midterm gubernatorial primary. Better than average turnout, but also the amount of ballots that were returned back and returned back successfully.
How about the age groups?
Yes, so age and gender vote totals, that's going to be released in the near future when registration has caught up with ballot applications and same-day registrations. But out of the reporting information that we saw from our e-poll books on Election Day, we saw similar trends that we have seen before, which women led the way by voting, in fact, more than some of our previous elections. And I think as Block Club had reported as of election night, and I think that this number will improve once we have the final numbers, women outvoted men by 23%. We also, you know, especially what we see for primary elections, much of the turnout was driven by voters 55 and up. But we saw a surge of voters 35 and below show up on Election Day.
Oh, really?
Which we generally do see, especially when it comes to 18 to 24-year-olds, 17 to 24-year-olds for this election. So again, a very similar type of turnout that we've seen in the past, and better than average. So happy, you know, I know it's tough for election officials to celebrate a 27% turnout, but this is better than the national average,
Yeah.
better than what we've seen from some of these previous midterm turnouts.
Okay.
The website has been updated with information for the November 3rd election, and we'll have our new materials and flyers with that updated November timeline, including our at-a-glance timeline flyer, offices on the ballot, our QR code card, as well as our voter registration materials. So those will start being distributed in the coming months and weeks, as well as supporting our community services team as they do their outreach, especially through the summer.
Okay.
That is it for my report.
Okay. And I think Sandra and Mary Beth, what would be good, I was thinking was, I'd like some brainstorming from community services and and public information about preparing for the November election, and how do we start getting the word out? What ways have we not tapped to, get the word out about a variety of things for the upcoming November election? Again, mail ballots, keep that at the forefront for our voters, but outreach. So if community services can, like I said, engage in some brainstorming and ideas, and provide a report on those. Not necessarily, I don't want what's been done, I just want new ideas.
New ideas, correct.
Yeah.
Will do.
Anything else? No? Okay. Is that it for your report? Okay, thank you, Max. Now we'll proceed with old business, infrastructure projects, and changes in election administration, including electronic poll books and voting equipment. Sandra, anything? Legislation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things to catch up on. As we've been hearing from Mr. Blada, most of the bills on our tracking list that caused us concern have been removed. They're no longer under committee consideration, so that's good. There are 4 bills up for committee hearing, elections committee hearing this week, but they're really not related to the board in any way, involving campaign finance matters. The one thing that would directly impact us, if we have a polling place at a forest preserve district, and I'm not even sure if we do, it would expand, the bill would expand the campaign-free zone around a forest preserve district polling site, so not a big deal. I mean, it's easy for us to move the cones if we need to. Otherwise, we're about halfway through the spring session in Springfield. The last October's omnibus bill still remains a pending bill, but that was all, nothing of major concern, nothing of concern to us in there. One bill I want to highlight that is still under committee review is good news for us. We've had issues going back and forth with using the schools for polling places, which of course is like one of the most historic uses of a school, one of the most historic polling sites in our country. The legislature has been making it a holiday on the general election days so that the schools aren't there. We do certainly, the board, as we know, we share the school's concerns for security and safety. Bringing the public into schools has become much more of an issue than it used to be. So they get those students out of the schools, but then they have to, because it's a holiday, Chicago Public Schools was reporting to us the added expense of needing to pay holiday pay to the schools, the maintenance staff that unlocks the doors and keeps the building open for the day. This bill would allow for a school district, district-wide, to invest in and implement e-learning day so that the students would not be physically in attendance, but they can plan ahead to have an e-learning day where they stay home and it still counts as a school day, which in my eye, I hope we never have another pandemic like we did with the coronavirus, but having the school district routinely doing this every once in a while would even help for contingencies like that in the future. So that's an interesting bill. It seems like a solution that would, number one, keep the kids safe by having them out of the building on the school day, but also not having it be a holiday, so that it's a normal work day for the staff. So we'll just keep our eyes on that bill and any others.
Okay.
As far as legislation, that's my report for today.
Any questions?
Quick question, on the high schoolers, if they work here, do they get school credit?
If they work as an election judge,
Yeah, or work during the day.
they don't believe they, so schools on an individual basis, teachers could decide to give classroom credit. That would be an individual basis. Statutorily in the election code, they don't get school credit, but the election code does say they have to be marked present they can't be marked absent from school. So it does qualify as a school day for them.
Okay, if they work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have heard of some civics teachers, some social studies teachers that'll give some credit for that, but that's going to be a classroom by classroom decision.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate Mr. Blada sending updates on legislation, so we know what's going on.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's, yes, on legislation, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll proceed to new business. We have a contract renewal with ESRI for software licensing and hardware maintenance and support related to the ARC GIS mapping system. And we have with us Rick Thurman and Carolina Roman. I guess we have Carolina.
I mean, I can send Rick up here if you
I
prefer.
know.
The procurement office is requesting your consideration and approval for a renewal contract with Esri Inc. for a GIS mapping system called ArcGIS for redistricting and map-making purposes. The ArcGIS mapping system includes software licenses, several desktop computers, and a computer server provided by the company Esri Inc. The system allows the District and Boundaries Department to provide ongoing precinct consolidation, local option and mental health district referendum mapping, new school board and police council district, and decennial redistricting procedures. The current licensing agreement and maintenance and support contract expires on April 21st, 2026, and staff is requesting a one-year renewal with Esri Inc. The renewal is for 1 year with effective dates of April 22nd, 2026 through April 21st, 2027. Please consider granting approval for the licensing, maintenance, and support to Esri Inc. for the ArcGIS mapping system in the amount not to exceed $30,371.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Carolina. Is there a motion to approve a software licensing and hardware maintenance and support agreement with ESRI Inc. for continued use of the ArcGIS professional redistricting and mapping system at a cost not to exceed $30,371 over the term of the agreement, which shall begin April 22nd, 2026, and continue through April 21st, 2027?
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Kodelman.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Kodelman votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Carolina. Next, we have a contract and appropriation approval with CDW Government LLC for IT goods and services. And we have our IT manager, Matt Lynn, and Carolina Roman.
The procurement office is requesting your consideration and approval to renew a contract with CDW Government LLC. Per the IT department's estimated spending plan, they are requesting funding for fiscal year 2026 to support annual software subscription renewals, continued support for networking systems and software infrastructure, necessary hardware and equipment purchases, and to cover any unforeseen additional expenditures associated with their ongoing technology efforts and for election-related expenses. On January 1st, 2026, the city executed contract modification number 7000244, which extended the durational term of the city contract through April 30th, 2026. The board's agreement shall be deemed as a subcontract under the City of Chicago contract number 33232, specification number 105081, requisition number 700244. The procurement office is requesting your consideration to establish a renewal contract with CDW Government LLC in the amount not to exceed $839,708.03.
Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? When you said the contract expires April 30, 2026
Yes, the contract
with
with
the
the City of Chicago.
the city, so we are, our contract with them.
Yes, we're
expi-
gonna pick, yeah.
And then we'll renew
Yes.
with them, starting,
And I'll be in contact with CDW, just to get the renewal documents, just because they've been the ones to forward the renewal documents to me. Still trying to get set up with the City of Chicago's procurement system.
okay. I think this is more for I'm looking at your spending plan, Mr. Lynn. A couple of questions. Because I see the total, but my concern, and I understand, I think, the idea behind it, but I'm still concerned. So the contingency expense for like 250,000, are there details with that, or, because it makes it up to the 839, otherwise we're at 539.
Correct. So, I mean, unforeseen amount is sometimes equipment may break down, sometimes storage, we run out of storage space depending on, because we expanding, like for instance, we have like 19 more vacancy, right? So as more people comes in, storage gets expanded, used more. And sometimes let's say for instance, especially for this one, we have back-to-back elections too, right? So let's say we need to rent a room, right? So we need to spend money to buy more equipment to set up new networks and stuff. So,
Has that been projected already, and is that based on historical data?
I'm sorry?
Is that based on historical
Yeah,
needs?
historic guides. And
Okay, so we can detail it based on what's been historic then?
Well, it depends. I mean, networking is always that, one thing. When we set up new rooms to, set up new computers, sometimes we may add more extra licensing. So, but it's a contingent plan, so maybe we never need to use all of it.
I understand that, my issue is that it's in there as part of my signing off on it. So.
Understood.
You're asking me that, I have an issue. But as far as, in addition to the contingency, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong, because I see some October, this is from your spending plan from May 1 of this year through when?
Through next year, through,
Because I had just had 930, but,
great.
so it covers all of 2020,
2026.
2026 or 2027?
I'm sorry,
Part.
2027.
Part of
So the whole year,
2027?
yes.
So it takes us through all of the elections of 2027?
Not all, because most of them expire, because it's renewed by September 30th, right? So,
Yeah, I see, I had September 30th of 2026 as an end date, and I'm not, so I said maybe I misread something. And that's not even taking us through November, so do we get another spending plan?
for 2027, yes.
Oh, maybe I'm missing something, let me look.
Well,
Go ahead, I'm looking
no,
again.
this particular
Oh, do I see some?
approval that you're seeking would be from April of 2026 through April of 2027.
Well, that is the CDW's renewal, right?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that would be,
Yeah, that's the CDW renewal, but the spending is for 2026. And then for 2027, I will submit another IT spending plan.
Okay, so, well, what's the 830, the 839 is for the CDW contract with the 250,000 contingency for CDW?
Correct. Because most of our equipment we purchase from CDW, so.
And to be fair, I know from the last renewal, IT did get a lot of requests from other departments
Mhm.
that were not communicated to IT
Yeah.
that ended up falling under the CDW contract because it was, request for like equipment and software, I believe. So I think that also factors into unforeseen. Just-
yeah, I have one suggestion, and because this contingency fund, right? What would be good is, as you're using it, we should be updated and provide
Details.
exactly, what it's being used for.
Yes, and when we did that with the last one, so anything that dipped into the unforeseen budget that
Right.
we allocated, we did keep track of those expenditures. And we
Yeah.
can certainly continue doing that and send that
Reporting out.
information.
And send it
Report it out to them. yeah.
to
Yes,
us.
absolutely.
And so, but we're putting in the contract for, I'm going back to the 250,000.
Uh-huh.
For CDW, we're putting it in in this contract I'm about to sign, that there's a cushion of a contingency, I shouldn't say cushion, a contingency of 250,000 just for CDW. And that's in their contract with them.
It's
No.
it's the board's spending
So
cap.
it's more like a
It's the appropriation
like
that
a
you've
blanket
authorized.
agreement that we're establishing. So we're just setting a cap based on what we expect to spend with CDW for this fiscal year.
Right, because I see it in the
But-
contract of,
Yeah, but it's not necessarily that that's
839.
our intention is to spend that.
No, but I mean, but
And-
what they're,
And instead of us keep going back to the board and approve for more amount. So-
yeah, well, I know I said last time, how many times are you gonna ask us? for
There
it
you
again?
go.
But, I
There you go.
But I also like to know that we're not spending without a substantiation of that cost. And also, I want, if you gotta come back 100, first of all, I think if you sit down and do the plan for the year, some things may not be able to be afforded us that year. So we have to look at it that way rather than, okay, we got another request for this. And that may change how we set it up. So, because we have to have a budget, and then we look at the difference in the actuals, and then we make a decision going forward. So as we're doing the financial analysis each year, it kind of comes across as, we've got this, and people will stop asking in the middle of the year. They'll know to have information to you earlier so that you can plan appropriate. And that's my concern, is that you keep, you're like a fire chief, you got a fire hat on, and every time somebody needs a new computer, well, if they didn't plan for it, that may not be something you can handle this year, unless it's just essential. So is this to cover the essentials or a cushion? And that's my major concern, because I'm looking in here and it says 839-70803. And then when I took out the 250, I came to 539, something. And that hit me again. So that's why I'm asking these questions. Even after I said, how many amendments are you bringing me? And I'd rather know that, because maybe some of those amendments will say no or. You understand what I'm saying? So trying to cover it, I appreciate that, but I think I appreciate more as a fiduciary for the board that the money is spent in a way that we may have to say no to some things.
And that's why I think when you, it just may be necessary for you to write to us and say, this particular issue has come up, we're going to need to purchase X, Y, and Z totaling this amount, and, this is why we need it, and send it to us.
With the rationale, like we get.
Understood.
And if, you could say, if we don't hear from you within, certain days, then you could assume that it's okay. But if one of us has a question, then it's an opportunity to ask and find out. And I think that's how we can, exert our fiduciary duty and, know exactly what's going on.
No, we want all of us to be fully equipped. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is that it seems people have gotten comfortable just saying at any time of the year, we need more new laptops or whatever. And there has to be a plan to that so that we can plan appropriately, because something else may need to be done more.
Mhm.
We may need more space more than we need a laptop.
Understood, and thanks for the advice.
Okay.
So what it sounds like, would you like to amend the appropriation amount today to minus the 250, and then they'll communicate with you?
Okay, my feeling is I would allow it to go forward with the contingency amount, provided that we get informed of, the expenses that are being, used for,
Uh-huh.
and the reason for those expenses, and give us an opportunity to say, wait a minute, hold on, we want more information. So that would be my thought.
Your thoughts too, Laura?
I think
So
so.
administratively, we'll make that agreement with the commissioners, right? I don't think that that doesn't get written into the contract with CDW, I would think, but
No,
as we sit here in the room today, with the executive director and assistant and everybody,
Reasonable.
And going forward,
Yeah.
then, you kind of know our concerns, that we appreciate you not having to ask a lot, but we would prefer to know with some specificity,
Understood.
how close it is.
Yeah, and then, and how much is left of this contingency fund?
Right.
yeah,
Right?
just keep an accounting on it. A little
Okay.
simple spreadsheet,
Yes,
right?
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Is there a motion to approve a contract with CDW Government LLC as a subcontract to City of Chicago contract number 33232 for anticipated IT expenditures not to exceed $839,708.03 over the term of the agreement, which shall begin on April 7, 2026, and continue through and including April 6, 2027?
Commissioner Kodelman moves.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown with the noted adjustments.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Kodelman votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
That's
Thank you for
great teamwork.
understanding and advice.
Okay.
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 All right, see, I'm signing, man. You said, make up your mind. Do you want me to ask or not? And thank you both very much for that discussion and explanation.
Yeah. And I agree, we have to have accountability at every stage,
Right.
and hopefully this accomplishes that.
Okay. We're good.
This is the ongoing steps in the right direction. with
Yeah.
This particular kind of expenditures. We're getting there,
Exactly.
yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Oh,
And now we'll go to our legal report.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Lasker?
Madam,
Mhm.
thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I do have just a few points to hit on. First of all, as you know, the United States Supreme Court has heard oral arguments in the case called Watson versus Republican National Committee. That involves the state of Mississippi's law that allows them to count vote-by-mail ballots that were timely deposited, but not received until after Election Day. Most of the reports I've read are that the questions asked by the justices during that oral argument suggest that they might be leaning towards outlawing the counting of ballots after Election Day. The court is not actually anticipated to rule until it could be late June or even early July. So what we've talked about as a staff internally is that we might need to make a quick adjustment depending on what the Supreme Court does with that. So I do want you to know that Sandra and I have met with our election systems vendor and have had it confirmed for us that the vote reporting system, as it's currently certified, can be set to stop adding the federal offices after Election Day, adding additional votes to the federal offices. Under the Illinois Election Code, right, so like the federal government has no control over the state elections. This matter is about the federal elections, and that the Supreme Court, I anticipate the Supreme Court's decision would be limited to federal elections. So under Illinois state law, we would still have a requirement to count the votes for state office, county office, local office, and so forth, for the 14 days after Election Day, unless they amend the election code. So assuming that that's the way that it would move forward if the Supreme Court rules this way, we are prepared to be able to, once Election Day hits, stop adding vote-by-mail votes to the results database, but continue adding the votes on those same ballots from the federal, excuse me, not the federal, the state, the county, the local elections. So we should be able to do that. There was, we had an initial concern that if we had to change the system, it might require recertification from the state board, which might be problematic because the State Board of Elections would have the entire state coming to it, potentially, in a very short amount of time. So it is our opinion that without changing the system, but just using the system in a way in which it's already able to work, we can accommodate this and not need recertification.
I just keep thinking about, how do you explain this to voters? It is so confusing. It's going to be a big challenge, be
Yeah,
a challenge.
yeah. I mean, on this particular issue, it's difficult to explain it to voters. We want to make sure they understand it's not a state of Illinois thing. It's not the Board of Elections making this choice. The only good news is that it is actually relatively simple for us to deal with administratively. So it shouldn't be, but it's, I mean, it causes the big D word in my mind, disenfranchisement for people. Because again, we're talking about ballots that are postmarked timely,
Yeah,
or the
right,
intelligent mail
right. Yeah.
barcode is timely. The ballot was not deposited after Election Day, so, but the Supreme Court is apparently leaning towards that Election Day includes when you count the ballots, not just when the ballot is submitted,
Right.
but when the ballot is counted. So, another thing we've talked about, by the way, is internally, and is when we receive ballots on Election Day, mail ballots, we don't count them on Election Day, because those same people might be going to vote in person. And it's reasonable that they do that, those voters, because they haven't received an email from us saying, hey, we received your ballot. So they get worried, and now it's
Sure.
Election Day. It's my last chance to run out and go to my precinct or vote center. So what we need to do is wait until we get all the electronic data back from the precincts and the vote centers to tell us that that person voted in person. Then we get to run and process those vote-by-mail ballots. That person's ballot will get rejected because the system says, wait, they went and voted on Election Day. So one of the things that we'll have, again, I have no idea what the Supreme Court decision is going to say. They haven't written it yet. But I'm hoping and optimistic that the interpretation is going to be when the ballots are received by the election authority,
Yeah.
so that we can still count those that we actually do receive on Election Day, if they're valid. We won't be able to count them until a couple days later, because we need the electronic data to come in. Anyway, these are the issues we're dealing with internally, but we've got the computer system kind of question answered, so.
Before we had any kind of computer-based counting and touchscreens, we had the ballots come in, and
There was.
we weren't able to count all of them.
Well, when they came in prior to Election Day, they would be counted, and a list would be created that's handed to the election judges to say, cross-check this list. Remember, back then, it was actual absentee voting. The numbers of people doing it was much smaller.
Oh, yeah.
So each precinct would get a smaller list, and they'd have to cross-check if every time someone comes in, make sure they're not on the list of people who submitted a mail-in ballot. But now, since it's computerized, every day of early voting, they upload that data into our vote-by-mail system during the early voting period. Everybody who comes and checks in to vote at early voting, that data gets uploaded into our computer system that night, so that any ballots that come in the next day, we'll know whether or not that person's already voted in early voting. That's the whole checks and balances, basically, of the system. And then again, that happens on Election Day, which is why we don't count those ballots on Election Day. So the system is working very well right now to make sure that, number one, we use postmarks, intelligent mail barcodes, and ballot certifications to make sure it was deposited timely. And then we have this very robust system with the computer system to make sure that anybody who did go vote in person doesn't also get their vote-by-mail ballot counted. So,
Okay.
any other questions on that issue? Second issue, the President of the United States did just recently sign another executive order relating to elections. I have been in contact with the Illinois Attorney General's office. The last I've heard from them is that they are very concerned about it, and they are actively considering litigation options. Several other states, including Wisconsin and some from the Southwest, and multiple different federal appellate court districts, several of them have said that they're going to challenge the executive order. So I do think there will be
Yeah.
decisions coming up from multiple federal appellate districts, which could cause it to go to the Supreme Court. Like the former one, this is the second elections-related executive order. The first one was struck down. I think this one will be for similar reasons, that the 10th Amendment does reserve election administration powers to the states and to Congress, not to the executive branch. So, I mean, it's a concern that it's been signed, but it's not necessarily a concern about its enforcement. The Illinois Attorney General's office is not recommending enforcement for us.
For us. Interesting.
for us in Illinois, right, this being a statewide matter. Number 3, I do want you to know that staff is internally, we're preparing for a potential discovery recount in the first judicial sub-circuit from our election that we just had here. There is a 70-vote spread, which is actually larger than it sounds. I would compare that to in 2019, we had an entire ward, 33rd Ward had a discovery recount where the incumbent lost by 13 votes, and the discovery recount came out at 13 votes. But we are getting ready to do that as needed. And fourth and finally, as I did report, I'm heading to the Chicago Bar Association Election Law Committee meeting this Friday. My fellow speakers will be Marnie Malowitz, she's General Counsel for the State Board of Elections, and Kiara Williams, the new Elections Counsel for the County Clerk's Office. As you well know, this is a group of attorneys who practice election law in the area, and the 3 of us as speakers have been asked to just sort of give a debrief on the last election and let them know what we're doing to prepare for November. So I'm looking forward. It's a very good group of attorneys. And that's my legal report for today. If there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Going on, we have no financial reports today. Do we have any public comments? No? No public comments. Is there a need for executive session today?
Not today, Madam Chair.
Not today. Okay. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Kotelman.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Kotelman votes aye.
Motion granted, and we are adjourned.